Welcome everybody to the committee review task force. As you might remember at the major sports team liaison committee, we had this process where we had volunteers for the chair and vice chair because the mayor retains those powers to appoint chairs and vice chairs. At that point in time, that meeting, he delegated his powers to the committee to do their own elections. However, he's not here today. So up until he gets back and he's able to make a decision, I'll just ask if there's any volunteers for chair and vice chair. Yeah. Councillor McCreary for chair and vice chair, Councillor Sullivan. Are there any other committee members who wish to volunteer? No? Okay, great. Councillor McCreary, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Very well run election. Welcome everybody. So this is the committee to review committees. I find that a bit ironic. I don't know about the rest of you, but we have no conflicts. We have no presentations. We have no delegations. We've got two sort of items before us today, 4.1 and 4.2. If I could get a mover and seconder for that stuff. Moved by yes and yes. Your names will come into my head momentarily. Mandy and Greg, thank you. Yes. Let's talk first of all about the identification of the task before us. Okay. We did this previously with the other committee that we struck. What was that? Major sports. So the committee's really got to identify to some extent what we want to do, what we want to accomplish. We do have the recommendation before us. Can we get everybody's thoughts on proceeding with what's before us? Comments?
Good start.
Councillor Samwell, good start. Yes, I agree. Thank you.
So do I.
Councillor Sullivan. What an agreeable bunch. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details. Once we get the list of what's
Sure.
mandated, what isn't, then we can start looking seriously at which ones we can eliminate.
Yeah. Councillor Sless, any thoughts?
I can't hear what people have said so far, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so we've got the recommendation before us, which is number 4.1, which talks about the, I guess I should be talking to the machine and not to John's picture. So there's the list before us, John, 4.1, which has an A, B, and C. So everybody here at the table is sort of indicating that that's a pretty good start for us. And I'm just wondering if that's your thought as well.
Yeah, I think it is, Mr. Chair. I think the last time I was involved in a process like this, we members of the committee went and visited each of our committees and kind of got a feel for what was going on there and what was going on in their heads, and then brought that back to the larger group. And that proved to be quite, useful, I think. So at some point, if we get to that level, I think that would be a good step as well.
I think you're right, Councillor, and I can recall doing that as well last time we engaged in this. And I think, if I recall, Mayor Friel and I did that tour. I think you did as well, right?
Yes.
And I think we had one per ward on that committee at the time as well. So that probably is a good idea also. So if we could sort of make a note that that's something we probably want to engage in as well. And it's not something that all committee members need to participate in. It depends on your time and your interest. Most of the work we're going to be doing in committee room, and the extracurricular will be according to time and ability.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, Councillor Sullivan could do all those.
Good thought.
Or not.
We have a second. Oh, jocularity. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. We can all talk about the level of involvement we wish to engage in, perhaps at a later date. So we'll go ahead and call the vote on 4.1 then, since we seem to be in heated agreement before we start getting into the other side. Those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And schedule. So we've got one under our belt almost. What's the thought of members with respect to meetings? Now that we have our work plan, sort of, perhaps with the blessing of the committee, maybe the chair and the vice chair could meet with staff offline with this and look at what staff's time frame would be, and then we can schedule our meetings according to how quickly we can get up and running. Would that suit everybody?
Yeah, does staff have an idea when they'll have the list of committees
Yeah.
for us to review?
Yep, through to the chair, we're preparing to have everything done to this committee by Q1 of 2024.
Not much point meeting before that, except for the chair and vice chair for the meeting staff.
And perhaps start to tour some of the committees. Councillor Celeste, go ahead, please.
Well, I think it would be good to have a discussion with staff. There's a lot of information to be collected and, it depends on their schedule, how fast that can be collected, which I think would then dictate the need to have meetings to review information that's been gathered. So it's kind of, I think, going to be driven by staff's availability to be able to compile all of the information that we're looking for.
Sure.
Through the chair, in terms of, the direction for the statutory, non-statutory, the list of active, non-active, the frequency of meetings, and the consultation with comparator municipalities, that's information that we track already. That won't be too difficult to obtain. The only item that will take a bit of time is consulting with members of SLT and the chairs of these task forces and advisory committees. And so when we're developing this report, we had that in mind, and that's why we recommended Q1 of 2024. So that's the recommendation. We could definitely bring that back within that quarter.
Chris, is it staff's intention to do all of that volume of work and then have one presentation, or to do, maybe one this month and one next month?
So through the chair, we plan on providing you all the information that's within the recommendation. And at that point in time, the committee can determine their second phase.
Sure.
So I see this more as a multi-pronged phase approach, where we're continuously improving the composition of these task forces.
Committee, your thoughts? Anything further on that?
Yes.
So we won't necessarily meet regularly until start of next year.
Catch and release. Catch and release.
Is it staff's intention to include the chair and vice chair of this committee when you consult with chairs of the committees that are being examined?
We could definitely extend the invitation, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That sounds good.
So we won't fill in the blank then?
Perhaps that could form part of the report in
Yeah.
Q1.
We shall say it, call of the chair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Call of the chair, okay, Councillor Celeste?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So we've got all this on the floor, then sorry,
CAO Hutchins.
I just, it's to another subject, but I would like to just make sure we cover just the review of the HR task force is kind of
Yeah.
going on in parallel.
yeah,
I don't want to be offside, so I can't remember what the motion was. I just asked Emma to pull it up. But so what does that motion say? Just so we don't,
did we refer that to this committee? How did
That's
what
what-
did we do with that?
that's not just
Okay.
double checking.
So the direction is that the CAO be directed to conduct a multi-jurisdictional review to determine if other comparators have a human resources committee or similar, that upon the completion of the jurisdictional review, the CAO be directed to report back on the outcome of the review and to provide recommendations to the committee review task force in Q3.
That's new to me. I was going back to
So
HR.
Q3 of this year.
Yes.
So we want to meet then, and then Q1 have then the full
Yeah.
report.
So by Q3 this year,
That's
a
September.
report to this committee may be that there's no report to this committee, and then we can report back. We have no report, and then we'll have a report in Q1.
We plan
Did
on.
you get all that?
We plan on, we actually do have a plan and a report on the HR committee to Q3. I know we're working on it. So if you want us to bring
Okay.
Q3 as planned, we will have it done. So yeah, so we can bring it, or if you want to punt it till Q1 with the rest of this, we can do that. It's the committee's call.
Well, that's a decision we.
Maybe you should make it now if we're going, next meeting is going to be Q1.
Might as well just punch
No,
it.
we're gonna have meetings that call the chair, so we'll have another meeting to deal with that if and when it comes about in Q3, which be according to staff's work. Is that cool?
Okay, yeah, so we do plan on bringing forth Q3. I'll make people aware of that, and then the full report will come in Q1 of next year. Okay.
So let's go to the vote then on call of the chair for scheduling. Those in favor? That's, John, you good with that? That's unanimous. Anything else staff wanted to raise before we adjourn? We're adjourned. Nowhere near a record time, I might add.